I never thought I'd see him this way. Austin had always been a part of my life but never quite in focus. He was Eric's son first, my stepson second. When Eric and I married 5 years ago, I tried to be everything a stepmother should be: kind, patient, understanding. I expected him to be distant, maybe even resentful. Instead, he had been warm, eager, almost grateful. It hadn't taken long for him to start treating me like the most important person in his life. It was different from the way he treated Eric. Where their interactions were stiff and minimal, with me, Austin was soft, affectionate in ways that made me ache for the childhood he must have longed for. Lisa, his biological mother, had left scars that weren't visible but could be felt. He rarely spoke of her, and when he did, it was with a kind of detached bitterness. She hadn't been cruel exactly, just absent. He learned early not to expect love from her. And so, when Eric and I married, Austin clung to me in a way that seemed innocent at first. He would linger in the kitchen while I cooked, watching me with those deep, searching eyes. He would offer to help with chores he had no obligation to do. He would sit beside me on the couch, just close enough for our shoulders to touch, and if Eric wasn't home, he'd rest his head in my lap as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I should have seen it coming. The jealousy. The quiet possessiveness. The way his moods shifted when Eric showed me affection. But I didn't, not until tonight. We were alone. Eric had left for a business trip, and the house had settled into a comfortable silence. I was on the porch, enjoying the warmth of a late summer evening when Austin joined me. He stood by the railing, his hands gripping the wood as he stared out into the night. He had grown so much broader, taller, his jaw now defined with the sharp angles of manhood. His presence filled the space between us in a way I had been trying to ignore for months. "I like it when it's just us," he murmured, his voice deep, steady. I smiled. "It's peaceful, isn't it?" He turned to me then, and something in his expression made my stomach tighten. It wasn't the look of a boy seeking comfort from a mother figure. It was something else. I forced a lightness into my voice. "I hope you're not going to waste the evening brooding over something." His lips curved slightly, but his gaze didn't soften. "Not brooding. Just thinking. About?" He hesitated. "Do you ever feel like some things are inevitable?" I blinked. "That's a very vague question." He let out a breath, pushing off the railing and stepping closer. "I mean, when you feel something so strongly, so deeply, and you try to fight it but it just won't go away." There was something thick in the air between us, something unsaid but undeniable. I felt my pulse quicken, my fingers curling around the arms of the chair as if I needed something to hold on to. "Austin." He shook his head, a small, almost rueful smile playing on his lips. "I won't say it. I know I shouldn't." I swallowed. "Then don't." His eyes darkened, but he nodded. "Okay." But the weight of what wasn't said lingered. And I knew from this moment on, everything would be different. Then strange things happened between us. I felt as if I had fainted next to him. One day in his room I lingered in the warmth of his embrace, my hands still resting against the solid plane of his chest. The moment felt suspended, fragile, as if the slightest shift could shatter the quiet understanding we had just crossed into something new. His lips had been soft, uncertain at first, but then, as if surrendering to everything we had both been holding back, they had deepened into something undeniable. When we finally pulled apart, the air between us was thick, charged. I saw it in his eyes: uncertainty, longing, and something deeper that he couldn't quite name. I wanted to say something, to give words to what had just happened, but my throat felt tight. What could I possibly say that wouldn't break the fragile secrecy of the moment? Instead, I reached for his hand. His fingers curled instinctively around mine, and for a fleeting second, the world outside of this room ceased to exist. "We should go," I whispered finally, my voice barely audible. "Before someone wonders where I am." Austin hesitated but then nodded. He ran a hand through his dark hair, exhaling slowly as he stepped back, giving me the space I suddenly realized I needed. Without another word, I turned and slipped out of his room, my heart pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. Back in my own space, I pressed my palms against the cool wood of my door, closing my eyes. My entire body was humming, my lips still tingling where his had been. I wasn't sure what had just happened, what it meant, what it would mean, but I knew there was no going back. Over the next few days, everything changed. We still had to act as if nothing was different, as if that night hadn't happened. But it was there, just beneath the surface of every glance, every accidental touch. The unspoken tension wrapped around us. pulling us into an invisible thread that only we could feel. At dinner, across the table, his eyes would meet mine for just a second too long. If he passed by me in the hallway, his fingers would brush against my wrist, so fleetingly, so imperceptibly that no one would notice. But I did. Every single time. And then there were the stolen moments. A week after that night, I found him in the kitchen late at night. I had come down for a glass of water, not expecting to see him there, leaning against the counter, bathed in the dim glow of the refrigerator light. His eyes lifted to mine the moment I stepped in, and the way he looked at me sent a shiver down my spine. "You couldn't sleep either?" His voice was quiet, almost cautious. I shook my head, stepping closer before I even realized what I was doing. Too many thoughts. Austin's lips twitched slightly, a ghost of a smile. Same. For a long moment we just stood there, the silence between us stretching, comfortable yet dangerous. The air crackled with something unspoken, something that neither of us dared to name but both felt. And then, so naturally it barely registered as a choice, I stepped closer until I was standing right in front of him. His breath hitched, and for a second I thought he might step back. But he didn't. He held his ground, watching me, waiting. I reached out, my fingers grazing his forearm, feeling the warmth of his skin. He didn't move, didn't even breathe. "I can't stop thinking about it," I admitted, my voice barely more than a whisper. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed, his jaw tightening. "Me neither." The next thing I knew, his hand was at my waist, drawing me in. My breath caught, but I didn't stop him. I didn't want to. It was dangerous. It was wrong. But I had never wanted anything more. That night I couldn't sleep. The weight of everything sat heavy on my chest. Austin's stolen kisses, Eric's knowing glances. The way the air in the house had shifted into something I could no longer control. I replayed the moment at lunch when Eric, casually sipping his wine, had said, "There's something different about you too. A kind of connection I can't quite place." His words had been light, almost teasing, but the way his eyes had lingered on me told a different story. He knew. Or, at the very least, he suspected. And yet he hadn't confronted us. Hadn't lashed out. Instead, later that evening, when we were alone, I had given him an explanation that was neither entirely a lie nor the full truth. "Austin needs guidance," I had said softly, meeting Eric's gaze. "He's been through so much, and I've been trying to teach him the things he never learned from his mother. To show him affection, support. The things he never got growing up." Eric had watched me for a long time, his expression unreadable. And then he had nodded as if amused. "You're a good woman, Layla." But the way he said it sent a chill through me. Now, lying in bed, my mind kept drifting back to Austin. The way his lips had felt against mine. The way he had pulled me closer, hesitant at first but then so sure. I knew I should stop this. I should step away before we went too far. But the truth was, I wasn't sure what too far even meant anymore. And then Eric kissed me. It happened so suddenly, so forcefully, that for a moment I didn't even process what was happening. One second I was standing in the living room, Austin watching me with quiet longing from across the room. The next, Eric had his hands on me, pressing his mouth against mine in a way that was more for Austin's benefit than my own. I felt the sharp inhale from Austin before I even saw his reaction. I tried to pull back, but Eric wouldn't let me, not yet. His grip on my waist tightened, his lips firm, demanding. He was making a point. Showing Austin something. Marking his territory. When he finally let me go, I saw the fire in Austin's eyes. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, his jaw tight with barely contained rage. Eric smirked, completely at ease, as if daring him to react. "Relax, son. Just showing you how a real man takes care of a woman." The words were a slap across the face. Austin's entire body tensed. And then, without a word, he turned on his heel, slammed the door so hard the walls shook, and stormed out into the night. I exhaled sharply, my pulse racing. Eric watched him go, a satisfied look on his face, before turning back to me. He reached for his glass of bourbon, taking a slow sip. "Let's see how far he's willing to go, shall we?" I stared at him, my chest rising and falling with the weight of my own emotions. He knew. He had known all along. And worse, he was enjoying this. The next morning, the house felt empty without Austin. I had spent the night listening for the sound of the door, for the soft creak of footsteps in the hallway, but he hadn't come back. The weight of what had happened the night before sat heavy in my chest. Eric's knowing smirk, the way he had kissed me, not out of love, not even out of desire, but as a show of power. A warning. A taunt. I hated him for it. I had barely touched my coffee when I heard the front door open. I turned sharply, my heart leaping into my throat as I saw Austin standing in the doorway. He looked exhausted, his hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes. He was still wearing the same clothes from the night before, his fists clenching and unclenching at his sides. I knew immediately that he was still seething. "Austin," I whispered, setting down my cup. He shut the door harder than necessary, his movements stiff as he stormed past the threshold. "Where is he?" His voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the simmering rage beneath it. "He's out," I said quickly. "He won't be back for hours." Austin let out a sharp breath, running a hand through his hair. "Good." He paced to the kitchen counter, gripping the edge as if he needed to hold on to something to steady himself. His entire body was tense like a coil wound too tight, ready to snap. I walked toward him slowly, cautiously. "You shouldn't have left like that," I said gently. "Eric. Eric is a bastard," Austin spat. His eyes burned with fury as he turned to look at me. "Did you see the way he did that? Right in front of me?" He knew what he was doing. He was trying to get under my skin. I sighed, reaching for his hands. He let me take them, though his grip was still tight, trembling slightly. "I know," I murmured. "That's exactly what he wanted." Austin shook his head, pulling away, pacing again. "He thinks he can humiliate me just like that. Like I'm some stupid kid who doesn't see through him." He let out a bitter laugh, but there was no humor in it. "He enjoys it, Layla. He enjoys knowing." I swallowed hard. "He doesn't know everything." Austin's eyes snapped to mine. "Doesn't he?" I hesitated. Eric hadn't outright said it, hadn't confronted us directly. But he had made it clear that he suspected something, felt something off between us. And now he was testing the limits, pushing Austin, pushing me just to see how far we would go. "He'll expose us," I said finally, my voice quieter now. "If you let him see how much it bothers you, if you react like that again, he'll use it against us. He'll never say it outright, but he'll make sure we never have a moment alone. He'll find ways to control you. To control me." Austin's jaw clenched. His hands curled into fists. "So what? We just let him get away with it. Let him do whatever the hell he wants." I took a slow step closer. "No," I whispered. "But we have to be smart. You have to be smart." His breathing was heavy, his chest rising and falling, eyes searching mine. I could see the frustration warring inside him, the helpless anger. But I also saw something else. Need. I reached for him again, my hands smoothing up his arms, feeling the tension beneath his skin. "I'm yours, Austin," I murmured. "No matter what he does. No matter what game he tries to play. He can't take that away from you." His breath hitched. His body stilled. And then, as if he couldn't take it anymore, he crashed into me, his arms wrapping around me with a desperation that stole my breath. His lips found mine, hungry, demanding. I gasped against his mouth, my fingers tangling in his hair as he held me tight against him. He kissed me like he was trying to prove something, like he needed to erase the memory of last night. Eric's hands on me, Eric's mouth on mine. He kissed me like he needed reassurance, proof that I was still his. I kissed him back just as fiercely. When we finally broke apart, our breaths mingling in the small space between us, I rested my forehead against his. "You don't have to prove anything," I whispered. "I'm here. I'm with you." Austin's grip on my waist tightened. His lips brushed against my temple, my cheek. "I don't want to lose you." "You won't." We stood there for a long time, wrapped in each other as if the rest of the world didn't exist. But deep down I knew the truth. This wasn't over. Not even close. The days passed in a fragile balance, a dance of stolen moments and silent promises neither of us dared to say aloud. Austin and I moved carefully, always aware of Eric's presence, of the way his gaze lingered on me, amused, knowing. But when Eric was gone, when the house was empty, and the only sound was the ticking of the clock and our own unsteady breaths, we found each other. It wasn't love. Not the kind that could survive in the light of day. We both knew that. There was no future for us, no dream of running away together. But in those quiet hours when the world shrank to just the space between us, we let ourselves have this. I would find him waiting for me in his room, his posture tense but his eyes softening the moment I entered. Or sometimes I would feel his presence behind me in the kitchen, his arms sliding around my waist as he pressed his lips to my neck, as if he needed to remind himself I was still real. We never spoke about what we were doing. There was no need. The understanding was unspoken. This was all we could ever have. One evening just after sunset, Austin found me in the living room. The house was empty. Eric had left for one of his business trips, and the silence felt heavier than usual. I was standing by the window watching the last of the daylight disappear, when I felt his presence behind me. "You were waiting for me," he murmured. I smiled softly, not turning around. "Maybe." A beat of silence. Then slowly he reached for my hand, his fingers threading through mine. "We shouldn't keep doing this," he said, but there was no conviction in his voice. I turned to face him, pressing my free hand against his chest, feeling the steady, strong rhythm of his heartbeat. "I know." And yet neither of us moved away. His lips met mine with that familiar urgency, that quiet desperation that never seemed to fade. I let myself sink into him, into the warmth of his touch, the way his hands held me as if I was the only thing keeping him steady. We had no illusions. Eric would always be there. The outside world would never understand. But here, in the dim light of an empty house, none of that mattered. When we finally pulled apart, breathless, Austin rested his forehead against mine. "This won't last," he said, his voice low. "I know," I whispered. He exhaled, his arms tightening around me for just a moment longer before he let me go. We didn't need forever. We just needed now. And for now that was enough.